Unit 11, The New Global Superculture.
Morning. I'd like to begin today's class with a question. And the question's this. We are now in an age where powerful social, political, and technological forces are changing our world and rapidly creating a homogeneous global society where people think and behave in similar ways. Do you think it's possible, in this kind of global society, for individual cultures to survive? Or will their unique traditions gradually disappear? And if these unique traditions were to disappear, would it really matter? Would it, as many believe, really be a tragedy if we were to lose those things that make societies, communities, different? The fact is, the world is losing cultures quicker than you might think. Language is the best measure of cultural diversity, and it's estimated that one language is dying every 2 weeks, and with it, unique ways of life, ways of thinking, communicating, and living. So, that's today's theme, the issue, if you will, that's at the heart of everything I'm going to say. First, I'll try to describe the forces that are pushing us, driving us toward a homogeneous global society, a world superculture. Then, we'll go on to consider the disadvantages of a homogeneous society, and I'll offer some thoughts as to why we should think very seriously about preserving individual cultures and their traditions. So, why is a global superculture emerging? What factors can we say have contributed? Well, to start with, there's flight. You often hear people say the world has become smaller, and without doubt, flight, particularly affordable air travel, has had the greatest influence here. This means the airplane caused not just a technological, but also a social revolution. Suddenly, large numbers of ordinary people were able to interact with people from other cultures thousands of miles away and see with their own eyes the differences and the similarities between them, the things that make people human regardless of culture. Now, think about it. Many of us in this room have, I'm sure, traveled to parts of the world our parents or grandparents never dreamed of visiting. And, as a consequence of air travel, commercial links, overseas businesses, and so on have become far easier to establish. So now, goods, technologies, and fads are entering new markets faster than ever before. Can anybody think of a good example of something, say a technology or fad, that's spread quickly?
How about cell phones? Everybody's got them now.
Great example, Adam. Okay, let's take the cell phone, for instance. You could go to any country in the world today, developed or otherwise, and I'd bet you could find a cell phone. You might have to search a bit, but I'm sure you could find one. Yet, these haven't been around very long, relatively speaking, right? Same with computers. That's to say, because people from diverse cultures are able to interact today in a way they never could before, commodities, ideas, and attitudes all get disseminated with unprecedented speed. The latest fads, whether we're talking about electronic technology, clothing, perfume, fast foods, whatever, they now frequently become not just national, but international, global phenomena. That's one influence, air travel. Now, another, and maybe equally important influence, has been the communications industries, which, and I'm going to include the internet in that category, along with the media, TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, and film. We can't really discuss the subject of a global culture without considering the powerful influence of these things. Today, as we all know, film and television are multi-million, even billion-dollar industries. Films, documentaries, news and current affairs programs, quiz shows, even soap operas are usually made in the hope that they'll be bought and shown around the world. As a case in point, take shows such as Friends or ER. They're watched on every continent and have universal appeal, as they're based on universal human problems, on personal relationships and emotions. But these programs also present and promote ideas, and attitudes. They enable viewers to see with their own eyes other ways of life. And of course, an important element in all this is advertising. Let's not forget that the media receives most of its money from advertising, which means that advertising's a major feature of television, magazines, etc. Advertising works through the media, so we're constantly exposed to it and influenced by it. That's to say, the global spread of fads I mentioned earlier owes a lot to the power of advertising. So, just as, say, in the U.S., commercials proclaim that it's cool to wear Reebok trainers, that Kellogg's cereals are the healthiest way to start the day, that Colgate toothpaste gives your teeth the best protection, and so on, well, they're probably getting the same message in scores of other countries, with the result that, globally speaking, people's habits are changing. They're converging. What's an example of converging habits? Here's one. Many Japanese today eat cereal for breakfast rather than traditional rice and soup, or maybe have a hamburger at McDonald's for lunch. And likewise, Americans or Canadians might choose sushi, tacos, or Chinese food. In fact, today, most people, at least in large cities, expect to get almost any kind of ethnic food. The fact is that the media spreads ideas incredibly widely, quickly, and effectively, whether it's cell phones, eating habits, fashion, whatever. And that's what makes it such a powerful marketing tool. To understand just how powerful, think for a minute about the music industry. Consider how television, radio, newspapers, magazines, and the internet have been used to promote music and pop stars internationally. Stars like Elvis, the Beatles, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Britney Spears, the Spice Girls. These and other stars have acquired world fame thanks mainly to the media. And the same is true of sports teams and stars. These celebrities are internationally famous, and people in different corners of the world want to imitate them, have similar lifestyles. Indeed, that's why companies use celebrities to advertise their products. The idea is that if Ronaldo uses, say, Nike soccer shoes, then you'll want to do likewise, whether you're American, Argentinian, Korean, whatever. That's the message. And the result? Youth around the world end up using the same brands. Okay, the media then clearly plays a major role in spreading trends across the globe and highlighting our similarities. But there are other forces at work too, and world politics is surely one of these. Although political divisions and ideologies continue to separate nations, it is, I think, true to say, generally speaking, that prejudice is diminishing and people are increasingly open to other cultures and ideas. To some extent, this is no doubt the result of political and therefore social convergences, of unions, such as the European Union, which represents a group of countries with quite different traditions in many cases, but where, nevertheless, there exists a spirit of unity, or at least cooperation. Europeans are beginning to feel that they're members of a larger culture that's more than simply a political convenience. Heads of government increasingly appear to be consulting and acting together on issues that affect the world at large, such as the environment and third world poverty. Because these things are reported in the media on news shows like CNN and are seen by millions, they create a sense of pulling in the same direction, a feeling that there's a culture of humanity, if you like. There's another way in which politics can affect the spread of ideas across the globe, and that is through controlling the movement of people across national borders, immigration and emigration. Political circumstances, as well as more accessible international transportation, have brought an increase in the number who choose to emigrate to another country. And when people move, so do their ideas and beliefs. Immigrants introduce things from their own cultures into their new communities, from sports to food, house decor, games, you name it. Again, in many countries, from Australia to England, we're seeing cultures mixing together as never before. This increase in cross-cultural contact, along with the decrease in prejudice I mentioned earlier, has led to many interracial marriages, which in turn have produced children who are familiar with more than one culture. This again reinforces similarity, the idea that we're all members of one human race despite surface differences. As a result, I think we have a new global superculture that's both richer and more diverse than any one single culture. Now, communications lie at the heart of most of the things I've been talking about. Even though air travel and the media have allowed us glimpses of each other's cultures, people could not convey their ideas, beliefs, and attitudes if they couldn't communicate them. So what I'm trying to say is that I'd like to acknowledge the role English has played as the world's unofficial international language. If you want an example, just look at the internet. In 1990, there were just a few hundred internet sites. Today, there are tens of millions, and the vast majority of these are in English. All right, although I've only touched on a few very broad ideas, I'd like now to finish talking about the forces that are shaping a global superculture and end by briefly sharing a few thoughts on where this trend's going. I should first say that I think a global superculture is inevitable, and in my opinion, in many ways, that's a good thing, perhaps even an ideal. It emphasizes the oneness of mankind, promotes unity, and, I would argue, helps prepare the way for a fairer world where the Earth's resources benefit everyone and wealth is evenly distributed. However, that is not to say that these things must be at the expense of cultural traditions, cultural diversity. Today, for example, we see the Ainu of Japan, the Chipaya of Bolivia, and the Penan of Malaysia on the list of endangered societies. If these and other cultures were to disappear, we'd lose the wonderful variety and richness of human life, whether we're talking about philosophies, clothes, or food. To some extent, we'd lose part of what has made us what we are today, lose touch with our roots, perhaps even the variety and individuality that makes us unique as a species. What's more, there'd be practical, possibly very significant practical implications. For instance, we may lose the benefits of alternative approaches to medicine, social systems, farming techniques, not to mention spiritual insight and the like. People in the developed world not only have a lot to give, but also a lot to learn from other societies about these and other things. We're already learning that technology doesn't necessarily bring advancement. It can also bring destruction, materialism, and a decrease in morality and social cohesion. And what about the purely aesthetic representations of human civilizations? What of art forms? Do we really want to lose the rich variety of art traditions? The many different cultural expressions of human existence? Perspectives on problem solving, too, dealing with environmental issues, say, creating a balance with nature, may be lost to us. Wouldn't these losses be tragic? I, for one, believe that future generations need to incorporate insights from a multitude of cultures. This would perhaps go some way toward preserving those cultures and traditions, which very simply make human society richer and more colorful. Okay, well, I could say a lot more, but as always, time doesn't permit. So, to summarize then, we've looked at some of the main factors that are contributing to an emerging global culture. They include, at least, cheap available air travel, the enormous power and influence of the media, changes in the political scenery exemplified by the European Union, perhaps, and the role of English as an international language. I started by asking whether these developments will mean that individual cultural traditions will inevitably disappear. The answer, I think, is that sadly, many already have, but it's possible for others to survive. For this to happen, we need to think more carefully about the potential dangers of globalization, as well as its benefits. And we need to appreciate the value of these traditions. for only then will we think twice about carelessly losing them. Let's just hope enough of us realize that before it's too late. Okay, in preparation for your essay, I'd like you to think about ways in which we can ensure the survival of cultural traditions in a world where a superculture is rapidly emerging. Are there any questions?